So historians use footnotes for three major reasons. The first reason, we use them to show how we know what we know. This is why they're at the bottom of pages. When you see a sentence with a footnote mark at the end, you can look at the bottom of the page to find out where that author learned the historical fact or historical interpretation in the previous sentence. Reason 2. We use footnotes to make it possible for others to repeat our research and follow our tracks. That's why Chicago-style citations show so much information. Usually the first citation of any given source contains an author, a title, the place of publication, the press that published it, the date it was published, and any page numbers or URLs. The exact elements of a citation vary depending on whether it's a book, an article in a scholarly journal, a newspaper article, a web page, or another kind of source. Usually the first time you cite a source, there will be a long citation. Then, when you cite it again, you'll use a shorter form citation. You should read about how to do this following the Chicago-style notes and bibliography format. The third reason historians use footnotes is to distinguish between primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. A primary source is something that was created at or near the time it describes. So, if we were writing about the Civil War, a source created between 1861 and 1865, or maybe as late as 1880, would be a primary source. These dates vary depending on what you're talking about. Primary sources include things like diaries, newspaper accounts, personal letters, government reports, photographs, and material objects. Almost anything can be a primary source, as long as it was created at or near the time of the events that it describes. Generally, historians consider primary sources as the most reliable sources for knowing about the past, but we also read them carefully for the biases they might contain. A secondary source is a document created long after the event that it describes. Secondary sources include books written by historians, documentary films, and some textbooks. Usually a secondary source contains not only historical facts, but also historical interpretations. It sets up a pattern of facts drawn from primary sources, and then it makes an argument about how we should understand the past. The papers that you're going to write in this course will end up being secondary sources. A tertiary source is also written long after the event it describes. It puts together information from multiple secondary sources, usually to offer a reference or a guide. Examples of this include Wikipedia, encyclopedias, dictionaries, and some textbooks. When historians read, they read the footnotes to determine whether this author's claims about the past come from primary sources, from secondary sources, and/or from tertiary sources. This helps us determine how the author knows what they say they know, and it helps us test the reliability of someone's claims. A tertiary source is also written long after the event it describes. It puts together information from multiple secondary sources, usually as a reference or a guide. Examples of this include Wikipedia, encyclopedias, dictionaries, and some textbooks. When historians read, they read the footnotes to determine whether this author's claims about the past come from primary sources, from secondary sources, and/or from tertiary sources. This helps us determine how the author knows what they say they know, and it helps us test the reliability of someone's claims.